Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about two important things I learned from being a prosecutor. This is Christina Williams with Just Criminal Law.
And David Mann, legal storytelling specialist. Okay, so first of all, I'm guessing most people watching this don't even know, you were a prosecutor?
Yes, I was a prosecutor, and I had a wonderful law school professor who gave me really good advice. And she said, if you're going to practice criminal defense work, it is really important that you spend a little time as a prosecutor. So I did just that. I was a prosecutor for about 2.5 years, and now I've been doing criminal defense work for nearly 17.
Did you always intend to be a defense lawyer and sort of did the prosecutor track to learn about it like your professor said, or was that originally your intention?
Well, out of law school, I really wanted to be in the courtroom. I wanted to do criminal law, and the first opportunity that presented itself was to work as a prosecutor. So there wasn't necessarily a method to the madness, but having done that and now having practiced criminal defense work for so long, I wouldn't change what I'm doing now for anything.
All right, so you said there are two main sort of secrets or insights that you have from that time as a prosecutor. What's the first one?
Well, prosecutors are busy and they have lots of cases. And so, as a defense attorney, former prosecutor, I know that they're not going to look at the case through the lens of a defense attorney's eyes. And, we can file a motion, we can try to keep the evidence out, and they're going to come to court not necessarily knowing what the big deal is. I mean, they're going to say, okay, your client was pulled over and, had 40 pounds of marijuana, and now here we are going to court, and they're not going to necessarily look at all the little things that happened from the time the person was stopped until they were arrested with the 42 pounds. They're just looking at, hey, I've got a defendant here that had a large amount of marijuana, and I'm just going to move forward with the case.
So with your experience as a prosecutor and knowing what they do, like you told us, what does it cause you to do differently and better as a defense attorney?
Sure, I will spot an issue that I think, gives us a reason to suppress the evidence against my client, and then I'll just put together a very simple motion to suppress and ask for a hearing, and then get the officer to testify. The motion shouldn't be elaborate, it shouldn't be detailed. I've done hundreds of these hearings, and you never know. I mean, you may think one thing's going to happen and something completely different comes out of the officer's mouth. And so, just giving notice and filing a very simple motion and then going to hearing and seeing what happens has benefited my clients over and over again, because if you're too specific on what you think was done incorrectly, the testimony might be completely different than you expected. And, it's just kind of that element of surprise for the prosecutor and the defense attorney, but then knowing the law and knowing what testimony we need to get developed by the officer.
Okay, so the officer is not going to be able to be prepped by the prosecution if you don't give them information to prep them with. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
Right, and it's really not my case. I really don't have the information necessarily to give them, and trying to be more specific rather than more general. I'm guessing, I'm speculating. So I've learned to be general and broad, and then just have the officer come to court and testify.
Okay, so what's the second thing that you've also learned about?
Having prosecuted and having done a considerable amount of defense work, I think that really gives me a broad spectrum of experience, which helps me figure out what a judge will look at and what a judge will do. Having seen both sides or been on both sides of the table, I think that gives an attorney that perspective to speak to the judge when it comes time to sentence my client.
Okay, so you know how the prosecutors think and what prep they are or aren't doing, so you can withhold or give, you're in control of that. And you know how judges think, so you can orient your case toward what you anticipate they're going to think like. And all this comes from your experience for a couple years being a prosecutor.
Right. It is just the broad spectrum of experience that I have. I'm really able to key into that for my client.
So it sounds like you have a very wide view of things, and someone might need your services. How might they get that?
Sure, we'll include a link in the description where they can call, text, or chat with a member of my team anytime, day or night. Here at Just Criminal Law, we know you only get one shot at justice, so make yours count.